Hi guys, welcome back to the Wyckoff Crypto Trading Lab market update. And as usual, today I'm going to go through a bunch of stuff, but our concentration is obviously going to be predominantly on Bitcoin, just because there was so much talk about this. We've talked about different scenarios. So this is where we are today on Monday at 8:15 a.m. Pacific time. So we've had a decline beyond the initial shakeout low. So we are registering two lower lows relative to the previous level of the support. We are undercutting a much more important support right here. But let's make some observations. So it's interesting how this type of action we were comparing to this change of behavior back in February. And then look at how the test of that is happening to the downside. So this test is creating a lower low, kind of similar to what we have here, right? And also look at the texture of the spread here and here. So they are somewhat similar. The volume signature is slightly different, but probably our interpretation is going to be somewhat the same, right? So even though more effort is coming in at this point of time to push the price down, inability and behind that an absorption of the supply by the demand suggests, recovery. So, and this is exactly what we're seeing on the next bar, which is very analogous to the bar that we've had before out of these places. We need to recognize that this reaction is somewhat deeper, so it's weaker than the reaction back in February. Yet the recovery out of that is, look similar. And I would be expecting that the volume signature by the end of the day probably going to be somewhat the same. So what could we expect next? Well, on the bar by bar basis, if we're still using this analog, the test of this bar right here, that's what we're expecting. And then an attempt to rally probably to this high right here. This bar is still the most important bar on the chart, the most important recent bar. So this is what we're looking for, and this is how it happened back then. So overcoming the high of this bar, overcoming also the point of the resistance that was created by the previous top, that would be the key. And then let's talk about different scenarios, because this is just a bar by bar analysis. There is a suggestion for the rally, there is a suggestion for the test, but it doesn't mean that that rally is gonna materialize in a big way. We just have to seek confirmations going through different levels, as I said. So we've talked about scenario number one, where we would recover right away after the shakeout. So obviously scenario number one is a bust. So that's it. We're done with that. There's no even need to talk about this. Scenario number two, we said that we're going to fall into the proximity of the previous low, and we would kind of identify this as our trading range. So with that, a potential phase C, a potential sprain below this support line. So for that, we still need that testing. That's number one. And then a local breakout. So this local breakout after the test actually is a really good place to initiate the position. So we'll be looking for that type of the indication. And obviously, as we discussed a scenario, we also discussed the failure of the scenario. How would this scenario fail? Well, it's probably gonna, if it's gonna fail, it's gonna fail like this, where we have some kind of bars and then we have the breakdown. So this would act as a failure. And the failure, as I mentioned before, is not necessarily long-term bearish. Again, there is so much sentiment that I've been hearing for the last, 2 to 3 weeks since the top, that we're in the distributional structure, that we are done. I think that the market still needs to prove itself to you to be long-term bearish. I mean, the market most definitely proven to those of you who were bearish that there is a short-term bearishness. There is no denying that. But a long-term bearishness still needs to show first in the break of this level right here, and then in the capacity not only to come to this level, but also breaking that. And obviously, you can still trade to the downside if you believe that we're in a bearish scenario here, and just kind of follow this uh, failed analog, failed scenario. Okay. What else could we say? Let's just go really quickly on, let's say, hourly. So a very good rally, and we called. I was actually watching last night on Sunday as the rally started to develop, and what was the key for this intraday call, somewhere here as we go through, is just an ability of the price to come back into the trading range. That's number one. Then also having some demand behind it. So there is some buying behind it. It materialized itself out of the spring situation. So somewhere here on this bar, we made a call that most likely this is a change of behavior. This is the best intraday rally that we've seen so far. Look at all of the rallies that we see here, even though this is an aggressive rally, but this is from the interim selling climax formation. So we have two climactic stop-in actions here. And all of the other rallies are not that great. So this is definitely, a rally of a different quality. And that is suggestive that at least temporarily we stop going down and we're in some kind of change of behavior. Okay, so what's the key now? What's the strategy? For me, the strategy is just to trade it. That's number one. To trade, maybe even with leverage, the Bitcoin or Ethereum, or Chainlink, or something like big big crypto assets like that, big cap crypto assets, and then to find also smaller assets where I could add to my positions or I could open new positions. I've mentioned a couple of interesting candidates as I was looking at the decline. And usually that's kind of like a standard procedure for me with the stock market, just to look at what is actually performing well during the decline, and just put the money there. So let's just go through some of them. So looking at Avi here, I like how we are in the trading range right here after the climactic run, smaller distributional pattern, potentially phase C. We are much stronger here than Bitcoin, and that's exactly what we're looking for. On this reaction, find every asset that is stronger with the correct price structure and with a good reversal. So that's what we're looking for. Okay, let's look at another one. So let's look at Bell, and we're seeing here more of the upsloping structure, but obviously, compared to Bitcoin, still stronger. I would prefer to see a little bit more strength right here, a bar like this. So this would be a little bit conditional for me, but supply is diminishing. It's just that demand is a little bit under question, but definitely stronger. And if you don't like, let's say, this candidate, there are quite a few others that you can go to and just, uh, you know, uh, compare them to the Bitcoin. Comp, this is one of the assets where I actually opened the position on this bar, just into the weakness of the market. Look at the strength with which this particular crypto is just holding. There is a lot of volume increase, and then it's holding. So that suggests some kind of absorption. Obviously, we need to confirm overcoming this bar, but so far so good. So I'll just see what's going to come next. All right, let's look at Ethereum. So Alessia and I, we've talked about Ethereum in multiple sessions for now. Definitely looks much stronger around mid end of April. Has this upsloping structure to it. So I think that there is a continuation. So I would be either interested trading an asset like this just because it's outperforming, or maybe just putting the money in for a swing trade. All right, so what else? Let's look at Chainlink. So also behaving somewhat better, especially on the second leg down. So here is our shakeout, and here is the continuation, the test. It's a higher low, so definitely stronger than the Bitcoin. The volume signature and specifically the supply starts to diminish. Again, like with some of the other assets, we would like to see overcoming of this particular bar in a more decisive manner. So once we have this confirmation and test, I would, become more aggressive. Okay, next one. Um, I liked Waves a lot. Also had an opportunity to open the position on this bar, so it's taking off right now. Again, it's the structure itself and the comparative analysis of it shows that it's much more interesting than, let's say, Bitcoin. Look at the demand signatures relative to the supply signatures. Demand is definitely dominating. So this is exactly what the type of asset that you would be looking for in this type of situations. Another one, um, um, this one also has a very interesting favorable structure with higher lows, so there is no violation of that higher low. The decline itself is somewhat marginal. The levels of supply is definitely different, and supply is definitely diminishing, and that's exactly what we're looking for. Again, we want a little bit better bar here, overcoming the last commitment to the downside. So that would be, the most preferred look for us right now. Okay, and I think with that, that's it for today. So I'm looking forward to the update together with Alessio, and hopefully, guys, this reaction is uh, kind of showing to you where you are in terms of your sentiment, because I've been observing a lot of kind of like bearishness on Discord, and usually when you have a lot of people being bearish, usually that's not the correct call. So be contrarian, stay against the crowd, and then obviously look for the signs of the change of behavior, and then look for the testing, and then look for the confirmation. And if the failure happens, okay, well then, we'll just have to deal with this as it comes. All right, thank you guys, and until the next market update.